Horus hearsay, here I am, here's what I say. Oh, sorry. I've got really thinned down McCrag blue and I'm going to put 2 coats on. Listen to some music while I do that. Okay, now having put that on, here's the bit where I just go back over all of the white undercoat with some black gesso. You can use black paint or even just very dark paint. It doesn't even have to be black. There's no reason it's black. It's just black. It's just easier to see in it. Do what you want, but I did black. Go over all the stuff that isn't blue armour. Just makes it easy.
Because the heat wave has arrived. My box fan, it just won't help. So how am I gonna go and save myself? So nasty, so nasty, so nasty. When it's 90 in the shade, I will sip the tea I made. Frozen cubes will float on top as I savor every drop of. So nasty, so nasty, so nasty.
Right, now that you've done that, just get the blue wash out. What are you doing? Sorry, I'm such a dick. Get the blue wash out and just wash it blue. Oh, my palette there, look. Just wash them all over the place. You can do a target wash if you want. It was too hot to bother. I just washed the whole thing and then went over it again in McCrag blue. But this time in a more controlled way to leave the darkest areas dark. This way it seems like you've got a very fine hand and you've gone after the fact, but you haven't gone after the fact, you've done it beforehand with proper planning. Proper planning will sort you out every time, alright? Wow, that's really something. Okay, reach for your McCrag blow. You're going to go over the previous applied wash to brighten up the model again, this time leaving the recesses dark. It's very simple. Follow along. Right, okay, we're going to do the cape now, because I'm getting the Ushabti bone out. The inside of the cape is a nice creamy colour. The outer side of the cape, it is a cape, is a lovely red colour, so let's go through those now. The inside, because it's nearly all obscured, I won't actually do as good a job on because there's no point. So I'll super speed through all of this. Basically, you I'll explain it in the red one. Just do what you want. Okay, one of the best tips for painting red is to mix corn red and Doomball brown at the start. Doomball brown is a really reddy brown, so it just suits being a. I always want to say low light because I'm an absolute idiot, but it's not a low light; it's a shade. Okay, all right, stop accusing me. It suits being a shade of that really well. Look how red and lovely it looks. So start with that. Paint the whole thing like that. And then what you're going to see is that I up the amount of corn red in there and then go over the higher bits in only slightly higher. I'm not just going to go one line down the very top on a ridge and go, there you go, I've done it. But you're going to get progressively thinner with those highlights. And I also have a little brush liquor blending technique that I apply as well, just to get a nice blend on the folds of the cape. Really fun to paint, and you can't really go wrong. So let's speed up a little bit here. Okay, so we've got a nice, good, solid coat there. Now what I've done is I've added a bit more Doomball brown. So I'm 2-to-1 Doomball brown to corn red now. Makes it a darker mix. So I'm just looking for all those areas that are going to be darker. Without too much paint on the brush, just come in and just start to feed it into those shaded areas. I'm going to call them lowlights one day. If you hear me calling them lowlights, call me out because it's an idiotic thing to say. But yeah, look, because I'm not sticking absolutely just to the deepest folds, because we can always go darker. So I'm just putting it in anywhere that's a bit darker. In it goes. You can see there how thin the paint is on there. get used to doing that, because you can blend by just having barely any paint on the brush. That's kind of glazing, and you can just do it that way, and red's a really good colour to do that. But it takes a long time, and considering that I was producing this for the video, I went with something that was a little bit quicker, which the brush licking is, which was still not there yet. Yeah. Okay, so you can see it's already working. So this time we're going to add a bit more Doomball Brown to the mix, and just do the same again, but keep it to the very deepest parts of the recess. Now it's time to go even darker still. Here I've chosen to add a colour called Heavy Charcoal by Vallejo. You could add Adeptus Battle Grey, or you could even add slightly less black. And then I stop here, but you could go all the way to black, like I say. Again, target the very deepest areas. Don't put too much paint on your brush. So you can see that brush there has basically got a black-brown mix on it now. And there's barely anything on the brush. It just means you've got control over it when you're doing this. And see how quickly it dries. That first bit's already dry almost. And if you want, it means it all depends on how far you want to go with it. You could leave it there and it will look alright on the tabletop. But we're yet to do the highlights, so that'll be coming next. Looking good, warriors. Looking real good. Okay, so look at that, lovely. Now we're time to do some highlighting. So there they go. Corn red, Doomball brown, but this time 2 corn red to 1 Doomball brown. See my little signalling technique to myself. It is funny. Okay, so get that mix. And this is exactly the same as what we were just doing, so this time in reverse. So we're looking for the high points. I'm not sure if, no, I don't start doing it with this, but yeah, probably when I get to the scarlet red, we'll start brush licking. Ooh, which we can't wait for. But see what I'm doing there? And again, keep the paint off your brush more or less. And what that means is don't have a lot of paint on your brush, because literally if you kept the paint off your brush, then you could just chuck it in the bin. But don't do that. See what I'm doing? You keep hardly any paint on your brush. You can always come in and you're just layering colour over that, but in a very thin layer, which allows the base coat to show through, which gives you a blended effect. Simple. Okay, I'm purposefully slowing down the speed a little bit here, because I understand you might well want to watch this, because there's a little bit of a technique which we've not got to really show so far. But here we go. Look, next highlight, that was Evil Sun Scarlet 1-to-1 with Corn Red, because I didn't do my little hand dip. See, it's a whole little system I've got for myself. So again, same principle, this time a bit less, just on the highest points. Start at the very highest points and then come down, because if you start going down you just can't correct yourself, you get annoyed. You see what I did there was I cleaned all of the paint off the brush and just with a tiny bit of water on there came in to just feather that edge. That dulls down the colour and gives you a little blend. So I keep doing it, and that eventually just led to me just getting annoyed with having to move the brush around my recording equipment. So I was just licking the brush, just sticking it straight in my face. See, look, I'll do it here, look, see? But it was just so hot that it was evaporating like instantly. So it was a risk of leaving some tide marks and things there and brush marks. So it just got to the point where I was just sticking that brush in my face. But see as it's drying now, I'm dragging that brush had just gone in the water and I'm dragging it down now. There's hardly anything on it. So that's just removing any brush marks, and that's the key to the blend. Remove those. You don't want any brush marks on there. Your blend's nice and happy. It's easy. So just carry on doing that. catch my little bit of slow motion in there? Eh? How instructive. So we're just going to do the same again. Keep going. I'm just adding pure scarlet to the mix now. I've got that same mix on the palette basically, and I'm just adding to it, and then doing the same thing again, but again in ever diminishing layers. It look nice, eh? Doesn't it? There you go, finished result. If you wanted to go even further, you could add a bit of orange to the mix maybe. Just keep pushing it. But I quite like that side on view. Look, it looks almost, just looks bloody lovely. So here we go, we've got the same thing. Again, it's exactly the same thing but in reverse. This time I don't really bother with the shading too much because you just can't see it on the finished model. Put a little bit more effort into the highlight. So I won't show so much of this just because it's the same thing. Just with Xandri dust as the shade and with white mixed into a shabty bone as the highlight colour. Mainly focused on this left side as we look at it, the right hand side of the model, because that's the main sort of piece of his cape that's going to show through when the model's actually assembled. It's just about being smart. I mean, if you wanted to, and I know quite a few people would, just for the sake of knowing it's done excellently under there, you could go ahead and put the time in, but it is a bit harder with these light colours. You have to really put the time in on the layers in. And again, because I'm making it for video, just didn't need to put time in. Okay, so in the past we've gone for yellow trim on ultramarines, but we'll go for a standard gold. Start with Skull Crusher Brass. Said that a little bit like an idiot. Skull Crusher Brass, and go around all the gold trim. Keep it thin, keep it easy. Okay, so now he's assembled. Assemble it. You can assemble it at this point if you want. All the metal bits that I just did then, I just did in bolt gun metal or iron fang, whatever they call it now. Actually, I used oily steel from Vallejo model colour, but it's the same colour as bolt gun metal. So do the metal in that, and then you can highlight that later with just mithril silver or a mithril silver mix, and then that. To do the highlight on his trim, I went with a mix of mithril silver and the base coat to go for the pale up. You really do need to be quite extreme with metallics because of the metal flake already in there. It's not going to notice when you mess about in it, when you highlight. If you just highlight with a yellow or gold colour, you're not going to see it, you're just going to see metal flake. So you need to go pale, and that means get your silver out, mix it together, highlight. Easy. Okay, it's time to highlight the armour then. So, stage 1 of highlighting the armour is a mix of Macragge Blue and Rust Grey, 1:1. This gives us scope to do a couple of layers. You could just go, some people would just go straight to Rust Grey and it's fine, or you could go for a lighter blue intermediary and then Rust Grey. I like to use the base colour if I want it to look good, just because if you mix it with the base colour, it looks like a lighter version of the base colour, which is what a highlight would be, isn't it? So it's easy as that. Side of the brush, angle your brush, all of that type of stuff. Simple techniques to line highlighting, guys. The main thing is just to brace your hands. See what I'm doing now? I'm bracing my hands against the model. Do that as much as you can, just be neat. You can always go over it again with the Macragge Blue, so don't worry about it. Okay, so highlight number 2 is a 2-to-1 mix. 1 Macragge blue, 2 rust grey. See me do the little double tap there, 2 rust grey, isn't it? Same technique as before. This time you probably want to brace your hands a little bit more. You want to make sure they're really steady because you want to keep this to the very edges. There will be one more stage of pure rust grey, but that's going to be really just on the very points and corners. So be quite conservative with this. Less is more. Less is more. Okay, pure rust grey now. Like I say, watch where I put it. It's going to be in the very, very, very edges of the armour. Going to be on the tips of those little protruding things. It's going to be just a little spot right there, look. Just a little unibrow. And all it does is it just ties it together. Just gives it a little bit of a shine. Shine!
A summer holiday and get some time away from the brain. Looking to 1984, your apathy's opened up the door. Now the brother, he's spying on you, monitoring through your Apple II. Mandatory soma injections. Hope you don't mind when we rig the elections. Freedom of speech for those approved. Best shut up before you're removed. Welcome to 1984. Your apathy's opened up the door. Now Big Brother is spying on you, monitoring through your Apple II. What if I told you the police are on a killing spree? You say it means nothing to me. What if I told you our democracy is now an oligarchy? You say it means nothing to me. I say, who are the brain police?
Ladies and gentlemen, our Lord and Savior, President Ronald Reagan. Good evening, my children. Remember, the Gipper's got his eye on
What does your SAT say about you? Oh, I see now you're a Delta 2. Speak softly, Big Brother is near. Never mind, he's already here. Welcome to 1984. Your apathy's opened up the door. Now Big Brother is spying on you, monitoring through your Apple II. Welcome to 1984. The oligarchy is pried open the door. Now the governments are watching you, monitoring through your Apple II.
Don't mind him. He'll be taken care of.
Okay, we are really nearly done now. I painted the purity seals with deneb stone. Then I washed it with Seraphim sepia and just did a standard corn red up to scarlet red on the wax. Same for the handle of the sword there. Now we're going to paint the sword itself with deneb stone. This is obviously different from how you'll probably want to. It's just what I like to do. I like to think of power swords as not necessarily being metal. So I paint them up as if they were ceramic. Literally deneb stone, mix the deneb stone with white, highlight the sword with that along the middle ridge and the blade, and then a bit of pure white on the very edges. Then we go in and hit the little metallic-y bits, those little wires. Hit that with some metal, some mithril silver. Then I wash it with Gwilym blue. Done. A few white streaks coming off of that. Looks good enough to me. Right, quick, quick note on the base. I just put Xandri dust on it, darkened it up a bit with some black, let that dry, then I glued a stone to it, and then I put that cracking paint on it. What is it called? I'll tell you. A Grelin Earth. And I'll just put that on it. Put it on quite thin. Put it on thin, you get smaller cracks. Put it on thick, you get bigger ones. I wanted smaller ones, so that's what I did. All right. That's it. That's the end of it. Like, comment, rate, subscribe, innit? Because that is it. Alright, see you later.